Hi, everybody. Looks like the stadium's full. This is Chris Grimm, and I'm here today with the awesome Marc Stcherbina. We are going to talk about some very important things. But first, let me back up and just introduce myself, just in case you don't know who I am. I am the founder, and I guess I'm the CEO, but I don't like to call myself that. I need therapy, of Aria and Avvi. Aria is our corporate coaching and consulting business that I've had since 1997. Yeah, right. And Avvi is a business that I started with my co-founder, Karuna, who's not here with us today, in 2016 to provide coaching and learning experiences and digital courseware for people that they would pay for with their own money so that you didn't have to wait until someone at your work decided it was time for your development. You could just take that bull by the horns. And I am here with the awesome Marc Stcherbina, who is really important to this topic. So let me tee up the topic, and then I'm going to hand the ball to you, Marc, and you can introduce yourself probably better than I can, outside of saying that you have an awesome accent and you're an amazing coach. We're going to talk today about the cost of high performance and success. We're going to focus today on men. In a few weeks, we'll do this again, and we'll focus on females in the workplace. We want to talk about men, though, today because it's near and dear to our heart. We've got a lot of work that we do on this with a lot of amazing men. And as a coach, I've been witnessing the cost of success and high performance and what happens when that starts to either fade or you make a change and it goes away. And so this is a perfect place for me to hand the ball to Marc, because Marc was a professional athlete and he hasn't just witnessed this happening with other men. He's lived it himself. So Marc, do you want to tell him what I mean?
Well, firstly, I like what you did there by handing the ball to me.
Mm-hmm.
Being a former professional rugby player, as you mentioned. Hi, everyone. Marc Stcherbina, founder of Winning EQ. It is not nearly 30 years old. However, you mentioned, Chris, the lived experience. So what brought me here was a 12-year professional rugby career that ended with a very serious neck injury in France. And that's really the basis of what I teach. It was a life-defining moment. And our topic today is the cost of high performance. Well, there's an example in my world of the cost of performing at a high level in a contact sport. Was a broken neck that I was lucky, extremely lucky,
Crazy.
to walk away from. And to this day, that motivates me. It helped me change my perspective on how I approach life, the lens through which I see life. Chris, I was given a second chance. That's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And not only just what I went through, 25 minutes of no feeling from the neck down.
Crazy.
Longest 25 minutes of my life. I mean, it's amazing the thoughts that go through your head when you are faced with the reality that you may never be able to walk again. And it was quadriplegia. It wasn't just my legs. I couldn't feel my arms. And I go back to that point. I have the video to watch.
Yeah.
Whenever I need that motivation, because I still have the programming from years prior to that injury that creeps in. And we're going to talk about that. The ego, the ego identity that still wants to rear its head every now and then. And it's taken years of personal growth, work, and reflection, and the willingness and just wanting to change my identity when a change of career was thrust upon me. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how it seems weird to say this, but how a lot of men aren't as lucky as I was to be forced into a different identity. I'm so grateful for it. Obviously, I can say that because I made a full recovery. But we'll talk about that today. So finding my purpose, finding out who I am, reinventing my identity based on who I want to be as a person, not just what I want to do for a career, and also not based on how I want people to perceive me, more how I want to show up and what I'm proud, the person I'm proud to be. We'll talk about that as well. And it's taken 10 years to find my purpose in helping other men find their purpose and reinvent themselves.
Yeah, it's amazing, Mark, and I just want to give you credit for all the work that you've done. And I think you're right, guys, or women who are listening to us today. I'm sure you know men. I actually think that most people, you're right, they don't experience it the same way. In fact, what they experience is, at least in coaching people for this long, is, the idea of high performance, which is often achievement oriented, titles, money, right? Material success in ways that are tangible. Let's just all talk about that, right? Like that's the way we want success to look like. It's achievement, it's control, it's power. And unlike Mark, most people don't have an abrupt thing that forces them to change unless you're fired or laid off or you have a tragedy, right? Because that's really, Mark, what you had. You had a health scare. Well, more than that. But most people don't have that. And so what we find in coaching is that, it's kind of like some people will say it like death by a thousand cuts, right? Mm-hmm. So they see change coming. There is potential change in the future, but because it feels far off, men tend to stay with what they're good at. And everybody, I'm not saying that's wrong. I want you to understand that what we are saying as we describe this, it's not wrong and it's not irrational. It is often missing the right mindset, which we're going to talk about. And the problem we all have is that in generations before us, that achievement mentality that we were just talking about, it kind of worked by a set of rules that didn't seem to change. People worked in the same organizations for a long time. This is a great example. And so they knew the rules of the game. I'm going to have this title, and then I'm going to have this title, and I'm going to climb the ladder, or your industry really well. And so you know what success looks and feels like as you maneuver either up, or you get more power and scope, for instance, or you get more skills, or you become an expert or a thought leader, whatever it is. And then when change happens, well, you think you're going to be ready for it. So I would say that what we're finding now in coaching, and you may or may not know this, but Mark and I are having our second year doing a men's retreat in Montana where we focus on this, and we focus on a few pieces of this, which is what happens to your ego, which is the keeper of your identity when change is happening. Because if you don't see it coming, it can create a crisis. If you do see it coming and you choose to ignore it, it can create a kind of simmering workup to a crisis or a set of crisis of confidence, right? That's a thing where we're seeing now in corporate environments because industries are changing. There's a lot of disruption. There's new technology. There's AI. The big, scary new thing everybody's worried about. But we have a lot of people questioning whether the old rules of success are going to work for them now. So I want to talk about that, Mark, because you have done a lot of ego work. And for a lot of people, they don't know what that means. So can we just break it down and talk like normal people language about what it means? Go ahead, you do your version because you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. No, well said, all of that. And I'll go back to the broken neck moment, being fortunate that happened. The reason why I was fortunate is because the abruptness of that career ending really helped me feel what it was like to no longer have it and have a stark contrast between what this career gave me or what I thought it gave me versus what I don't have now. All of a sudden, this doesn't feel good. I'm having anxious thoughts. I've never had these before. What is going on? I need some answers. Mm-hmm. I don't have a plan. I've always felt like I've had a plan. I don't like the idea of the perks that this rugby career gave me that I'm not going to have anymore. So it all just accumulated at once and forced me to figure it out so that I could take the next step powerfully and be excited about it, because I wasn't. Like you talked about, I wasn't excited. I was happy to keep going along on the same train. This feels good. Another 3 or 4 seasons, kept putting off the inevitability of me retiring because I'm too old, to your point. A lot of men in the corporate world, that's way off in the distance, which can be even more dangerous.
They might believe it is, right? So it's just really, I have to just say this, everybody, because it always is amazing to me when I am with Marc, either coaching men or we've been to South by, we've been to places together, and your self-awareness in talking about identity and ego. And it's so powerful, everybody, for men, because you're going to understand it, guys. Chicks dig them. Marc's got the accent. He's a professional athlete. He's a broadcaster. He's all the things. But, when we break it down, all men want those things. So it is a part of the achievement identity process. And I just wanted to make sure we acknowledge this, because every man I know is worried about what people are going to think about him. They're worried about, if I'm not CEO anymore, if I'm not this anymore, if corporate and work is success doesn't make me desirable, what are my kids going to think of me?
Yeah.
What is my wife going to think of me? Or if they're divorced and they're dating, for instance, like, who am I if I can't tell everybody I'm blank?
So can I jump in on that?
Please.
So that was the realization. Slapped me in the face. It was like, I've been given a second chance at life. I want to make the most of it. Let's go. Hallelujah. So why do I feel so scared? Why do I feel lost? And I had to figure that out to make the most of my second chance. What I got to see was, this is how I've been living. And I learned about the ego, to your point. A book that helped me do that was The Power of Now. Changed my life. First self-help book I've ever read. And Eckhart Tolle talks about the ego in a way I've never heard it described before. And it made so much sense. I'd been living for the perks, the recognition, the status. Here's what shocks people. I didn't love rugby. It wasn't my passion. I was good at it. It gave me recognition. It gave me good money. But something inside me felt all the time that there was something else was meant for me. And I don't feel like I'm really giving the world value. Anyway, we can talk about that, but that's what I was reflecting upon. It's like, all right, so if that's how I was living, and if it was very ego-based, I don't want to live that way now. So when I have an idea of it, and again, men, I implore you to check in with yourself and ask yourself questions like, how do I want to experience life? Because that was the question I was asking myself. This has happened. I don't want to make the same mistakes that I was making, and I had to figure out that they were even mistakes. And if I'm going to live life, what looks like making the most of my life from now on means taking the ego out of my decision-making process as much as I can. We're human. It's going to happen. We are going to worry about what people think of us. We live with other human beings. But as soon as I learned to make decisions, to make my choices, to live in a way that wasn't driven by my ego and my image, life just got so much fuller and richer, and I became happier.
Yeah, wow. We have to talk about two things. You just said it was so good. Thank you for sharing so much about your own story, by the way. I think it's incredible.
Of course.
And I watch people's faces when we're live. So I hope you know that. It's really powerful. So the two things I want to say, everybody, is that I want to just slow us down and point to two things that most men, I think, will register what I'm saying here. So our fathers and grandfathers and popular culture used to call something a midlife crisis when a man got to his 40s or 50s and started to realize that the hamster wheel of work and life, the never-ending achievement cycle, where what have you done for me lately? Do more, started to feel dissatisfying. And so you've watched all the movies, guys, you've all seen it, right? The man leaves his wife and goes for the 22-year-old. He buys a fancy car. He starts wearing gold chains or something. I don't know. There's all the characters that have been put in front of us of what midlife crisis was. And, I'm actually writing a book manuscript about this because I believe the new midlife crisis, first of all, doesn't need to be a crisis. I also believe that midlife is happening earlier for a lot of men because we're in such constant change that keeping up and achieving things is taking so much more personal commitment and attention and energy, right? In fact, we have a whole syndrome, I believe, that we have a whole bunch of young men who aren't doing it at all. They're like, yep, nope, thanks a lot. We're not doing it. That's another crisis we can talk about. But I think the men who are in the workplace, like we're talking about here, are starting to realize the cost of high performance sooner. They're starting to say, wait, why are we doing this sooner? Which creates an identity question. Maybe not a crisis, but definitely the ego going, wait a minute, if I'm what I do and what I have and what people think of me, and I'm afraid right now that I can't keep up with this, or there's nowhere for me to go in this business. Now we've got a whole bunch of men unsure how to be men. And we take this really seriously. So for those of you watching, I hope that you understand, this isn't just a fun topic for Mark and I. This has become life's work for him because of his experience. But for me, because I'm watching this happen all the time and seeing men who are ill-equipped to do what Mark described. So I want to pivot a little bit back into what he's saying, because Mark, you're talking about reading The Power of Now for the first time. Probably not a book you were carrying around from match to match when you were
no
right.
No, and look, I can say so much about this. Thank goodness it was a teammate of mine, another rugby player, that was reading it at the time. So that speaks volumes for the importance of having other men in your life that can support you. And I isolated myself, Chris, when I was going through that confusion. I was still wearing a neck brace. I didn't want to be out in public,
right,
and see anybody from my world doing the thing I used to do, catching up for coffees on their way to practice. I didn't want to see billboards of my rugby team advertised for matches, because it would trigger me and I was worried about what that would do. So I just stayed in my house and drank alcohol and numbed it. This is true. And I needed some answers. Fortunately, I went and had a coffee with this one teammate. And that was the catalyst for the change, to move me away from this spiral of spiraling into despair, and opened up and shared with him my emotional struggles, something I'd never done with any of my rugby teammates. Again, because of the stigma, my old contact sport. And thank goodness, halfway through me just spewing my emotions and anxiety all over him, he pulls out this book. He says, mate, you need this more than me. This will give you some. I'm listening to, your mind is everywhere except the present moment. And this is perfect for this particular book, because it's Power of Now. It teaches you how to be more present. It's the only thing we have. I'm like, interesting. I'm intrigued. I devoured that book in 48 hours.
Wow.
because it was yeah.
Wow.
Like I sat under a tree. It's kind of that desperate for some answers and some clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And the confusion I was having about what's wrong with me, because I've always had it together.
Mm-hmm.
So thank goodness. And that book sparked my
Yeah.
personal growth journey.
Look, the book is great. I want to talk about, because we usually work in like 4 disciplines or 4 levels of perception. And so, everybody, if you want to write this down or just listen, you'll be able to remember this. And it probably won't be surprising. But if, in fact, you're a person who's super successful, I'm sure you are, but you have an inkling that that could change, and or you're planning to retire, or you're planning change in your life, you've got to do more than just read a book. The book is important, but first of all, I would just say the men who I see who navigate change and the evolution of their success is the way I'm going to say this, right? Well, is that they have physical discipline first. I
Mm.
think men who don't have physical discipline later, when change happens, and like Mark's saying, you're all of a sudden sitting there, you got laid off or something happened. If you don't have physical discipline, then your body also is a mess. It's not going to recover fast. That depression is going to maybe be in your whole body, and then you're going to eat and drink more, etc. So physical discipline is something that I know I advocate for. Mark, of course, lives it every day. So we say not just working out, though. We advocate for you to learn about your nervous system,
Mm.
learn about what the anxiety feels like in your body, and learn how to manage that before the big changes come, so that you don't have to back into it is the nicest way I can say it. And I know, Mark, for you, physicality is more than just a discipline. I know, because of your keynote, I broke my neck, so you don't have to. That you taking the stairs and doing all those things is meaningful. But I think for all men, this is the foundation of what we're talking about here. Is ego identity can't be restored without you first having your physicality somewhat disciplined, and I don't know how you want to say that, maybe in man language that I missed.
No, that was pretty manly. That was good, Chris. Okay, there's so much you said there. I just want to take 5, 6, 7 of those points and dive in, but I won't. Let me just see if I can distill it. Yes, the discipline. Again, fortunate that I'd had a career, and I'm unbelievably grateful for that rugby career. Wouldn't have changed it, and I acknowledge the skills that it equipped me with, especially discipline, and for physical discipline. We put our bodies through hell. There was consistency. We had to build strength, resilience to be able to handle what we handled on the field. The beauty of that is that spills over into other areas of our life. So while I might be disciplined about nutrition and gym work, weights, because my trainer told me to, or I'm not going to be picked for the team on the weekend, well, guess what? That discipline spills over to how tidy I keep my workspace, my bedroom, my clarity of thought. It's how you do one thing is how you do everything. So discipline is key.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind and body are connected.
Yes.
I believe that. So while going to the gym, going for a run is good because it builds our physical fitness and helps us stay away from the doctor's office, we're releasing neurochemicals, feel-good chemicals in our brain that uplifts our mood, motivates us. And then when we've got to get stuck into some work, men, because I know you're keen to just get back into work because that's your identity. Well, because you've worked on your body, it translates into clarity of thought, problem solving, and just motivation and mood.
Yeah, let me just add to that, because our second level that we work on is mental. And not only everything that Mark just said, we also work on the stories that you tell yourself about yourself, right? So guys, that's where your conscious identity live, the stories you tell yourself and other people about yourself. And remember, it's not just you. We all care what other people think of us. We're on a planet with other people, in case you didn't notice. So what we do, what we have, and what people think of us, that's kind of the way your ego's functioning on a regular basis. It's doing a lot, subconsciously, but what it's driving all day, every day is that for us. So we also recommend that you adopt a growth mindset. What that means is that I'm going to take on the philosophy of expansive thinking. Now, Marc said he took The Power of Now. If you guys all grabbed that book, you would see that, that book is not an easy read, by the way. And talk about expansive. That's going to crack open a new definition of a whole bunch of terms, knowledge, but also probably made you question some stories about yourself.
Well said. Absolutely. Yeah, stories that, which is my ego making those stories up. Because you said it perfectly. What the ego identifies as how it sees the world. I am what I have. I am what I do. I am what people think of me. Just those three. And yes, we do that. So being able to see that a lot of the things, a lot of the intention behind what I do and what I think is determined by that. And to your point, Chris, understanding self-awareness is what we're talking about, is the key to that. It's just about knowing that that's how we operate, and that's okay. What's important is understanding how detrimental it can be, the dangers of that, and whether it's aligned with, once again, how you want to live. How do you want to live, gentlemen? How do you want to experience this life? Look at all areas of your life. And then what is it costing you when your ego is trying to identify itself from these three parameters?
Yeah, it's really true, because if you don't do the kind of work that we're talking about here, and it's available to everybody, and you don't even have to have a coach to do it. What we're describing to you is pretty accessible now. And all we're saying is, get some discipline in your body and in your mind, because what will happen if you don't is, I think you were saying this, Marc, you're going to fall back into your comfort zone. For those men here who are 50, maybe 60 and onward, and that your career sooner or later is, you might not retire and cut it off one day. I know a lot of people tell me, I'm not doing that. I'm like, okay, but it's not going to be the same in your 50s and 60s than it was when you're 20 and you're 30. It's not.
Yeah.
We don't have the same energy. Why would we want to do that, by the way? If you've achieved all this success, don't you want to enjoy your life, your kids, your grandkids, etc.? And so what happens, though, if we don't do the expansive work on the way you think about yourself, you'll be sitting around comparing yourself today to old you.
Oof.
And that's a dangerous game, y'all. And that's what creates anxiety, depression. I mean, I know when gentlemen come to me and they're 60 and they're the CEO of something and they're thinking, 5 more years, but they have no plan for what comes after that. Yeah. I'm like, woo, we're not going to just fall off a cliff, because you'll be miserable. Your partner or spouse won't know what to do with you, because you'll be telling them which peanut butter to buy, or whatever is happening in your home, right? Like you got to come to grips with that, which brings us to the third thing we work on, which is getting to know your emotions. Like, think about it. When you're hustle grinding success, part of the cost of that is that anything that distracts you from that, you don't want anything to do with, guys. And emotions, specifically messy, intense ones, we don't want. And so what I also see in coaching is, as men are getting into this, like, the earth is shaking, my success is going to be different, I need to define myself different, all these emotions start coming up, ones that they've never experienced before. And Marc, I know you had that in your experience. I mean, I'm sure that it was exponential because it was so sudden.
In the moment that it was happening, it feels still vivid. What if this is it for me? What if I can't walk again? What does that mean for my life? Who am I? How are people going to treat me? Have I done everything I want to do in this body? If I can't do it anymore, like the ruminations. But I think it just comes back to, like you were saying before, Chris, was growth. And really just making that, it's a value of mine now. So comfort zone is the enemy to growth. I take enjoyment out of improving even from yesterday. And I think if we start to live our life by that and not comparing ourselves to others, or this is a problem for men. I've been navigating this I'm late 40s now. And I'll give an example. I went for a run. This was last year, and I have Strava. A lot of fitness fanatics might have that app where you get to track your runs, your data, whatever exercise you're doing. And I like to look back over scores, and I'm competing with myself. I hadn't used this thing for years, since I was running 10 years ago in LA. And I went for a run, and I'm like, oh, Strava, let me measure my run, my distance, the time it took, how many minutes per mile. And then when I looked over my old results from 10 years ago, when I was a much younger man, I got instantly depressed.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, because of the work that we're talking about, that's human emotions, right? That's going to happen. We're not talking about eradicating those or figuring out a way so that never happens to us. What was important for me in that moment is, I'm noticing these emotions, and I feel like it's my ego that is struggling with this because I'm a minute and a half slower than when I was 10 years younger. And then I managed that. I changed my perspective, and I'm like, I accept that my body is getting slower as we get older. The aging process breaks down our muscles. And I reminded myself of that. And I went back to, but what did I do yesterday? Like, I have a new best. That's what I'm focusing on.
Right.
And let's use that as my marker and be better tomorrow than this today. So I was able to forget about and not compare myself to my younger self. Because as you said, Chris, it's dangerous, and it can really have us stuck, and it can negatively affect our emotions if we get stuck in it.
Yeah. Look, you have to have good for you for having the mental discipline to take yourself through that. Guys who are here with us, you have to learn how to do what Marc's talking about. For most people, what you just described is not an easy, natural process. So for those of you who just heard what he said and kind of winced, maybe you hung up, maybe you're not with us anymore. I hope you stayed. But it is important because it doesn't come naturally. Everybody, you have to learn how to do this. And I know we're at 32 minutes, and we were going to try, and we never do 30 minutes when we say we're going to do 30 minutes. Anyway,
yeah.
It is important. The fourth level of perception that we help people work on, and some of you aren't going to be surprised at this, but moving from believing success is material into looking at success as service, as impact. For some people, that is a spiritual experience. Like, I want to give back. I want to help the world. For some people, that is missionary work. It doesn't have to be religious. For us, it is we call it flying above the obstacles like an eagle, right? And looking at everything from a very different vantage point. And Marc, in some ways, that was what you were doing. Anytime, you guys, we compare ourselves to our younger selves, that's what we're doing. We're the older we get, I can say this, I just turned 58. The older I get, the more I'm reflective. That's what starts to happen to us in the back nine. So those of you who are in the front nine, great. Time's going to go by quickly, though. And so if you don't, as early as possible, start to widen your definition of success. Like Marc, you said, I got a second chance, which is awesome. And now you've dedicated yourself to helping other people. And I actually think we all have some version of that. And so, gentlemen, I want to say to all of you, if you need resources to do what we're saying, please reach out to us. We have resources. If you need coaching, we got that too. And we run this Montana retreat every year. It's a small group of men because we do it's an intensive. It's not a yoga retreat. So if you're not retreaty, don't get all weirded out about it. It's actually a butt kicking and a half. including Marc exercising at 5:30 in the morning, and then we cold plunge in the river.
So fun.
But we put all those disciplines in place so that you don't have to try to do it organically in the middle of everything else that's going on in your life.
Yeah.
Because what we learned is, even though we can coach you through it, it takes longer. I don't know what you think, Marc, but oftentimes what happens then is people, they're not as motivated to do it until those crisis moments happen. And then all of a sudden, when the train that's coming towards you gets closer, people get more motivated, but we'd actually like to avoid that and help people do it sooner.
Thank you, Chris. And look, not just avoid that, but if that does happen, what if it happens in 10 years' time and you finally have that awakening? What happened to those 10 years? Don't you want to live those now? The eagle analogy, that fourth dimension, that's what we're aiming for. And what I love about that, Chris, is just that visual of the eagle flying above everything else. Men, that's freedom.
Yeah.
We're trying to get you to freedom. Trying to get you to the freedom of the ruminations and stuck in ego and stuck in material and workaholism, because most of you are in it right now. So we help you get above all of that, and you'll feel so much lighter, and you'll just know that this is how I'm meant to be living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so good. We've taken a lot of everybody's time, so I just want to say thank you for those of you who hung out with us. And for doing that, Heather's going to put a link in the chat as our gift to you for being with us in the middle of your day or listening to the recording. It's going to give you a discount if you are interested in Montana. It takes $500 off the registration. It's May 1st through the 6th in Wise River, Montana. It's spectacular. It's a world-class fishing lodge. So yes, we do fish. And, everybody needs to catch more fish than me, because you don't want me to beat you, do you?
That's tough. You catch a lot.
Hey, you know what? I won't this year just because you said that.
Sorry.
Anyway, Marc, I am always happy to be with you. And everybody who could join us today, I just want to say thank you again, but also just urge you not to wait until there's rumblings, right? The cost of our success is that most of us, when we're in it, we think it's forever and we build our identity on it. And then it doesn't feel that great when we haven't prepared. So we want to help everybody be resilient. We want you to have a plan, and we want to help you have a roadmap for your future so that you can keep on living your best life.
Agile.
Yeah, those are great words.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have to go back to work, everybody. Sorry.
Totally. Chris, thank you. You're a blessing.
All right. I'll see you later. Bye, everybody.